Jenny's done one ticket holder. She's paid a lot of money for this.
Councillors, can I have your attention, please? Thank you. I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and declare the meeting open. It is pleasing to see that as the COVID-19 restrictions continue to ease, we are able to have a public gallery in attendance, although in a limited capacity. So thank you for coming down to attend. There is a few open seats, so maybe next month a few more community members might want to come and join us. I will start with the prayer. We will commence the meeting with the following reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. Thank you. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, do I have any apologies tonight? I do not. Before proceeding to the business before us tonight, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the efforts of our previous Mayor, Councillor Bert Owen, during his term of office. Councillor Owen, can you please come forward? I would like to present you with a portfolio of the Remembrance over the last 12 months while you have served as Mayor. This last 12 months has been a very difficult year for the Council and our residents. We have not just had to suffer through COVID-19 issues, but have had Mother Nature play her part, sending us several extreme storm events, which we are still trying to recover from. I would like to thank you on behalf of the Council for your stewardship through this unprecedented time and hope that this portfolio will bring you pleasant memories of your term as Mayor when you look back to 2021 in years to come. Thank you very much, Councillor Owen. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Fantastic job. So yes, we would like to, on behalf of us all, we'd like to thank Councillor Owen for the massive effort, fantastic work that you put in over the last year, and I would like to give you the opportunity to say a few words if you would like.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Thanks for the gift. It is appreciated. With your indulgence, I might need 5 minutes if that's okay, within time frames. There has been many highlights and achievements over the past year, along with some challenges, as you mentioned. This year can be explained as COVID. It has been frustrating not being able to meet in person for many months, and it has been a challenge, particularly when forming a new team and building councillor relationships. I've made a priority of working on expected councillor behaviours as a councillor group. Also allowing ward councillors have more input on media releases, promotions of activities in their individual wards. It's not always about the Mayor providing communications on certain projects and activities. This is particularly important if the ward councillor has had long involvement or advocated for that particular item. I hope this continues. It was with great sadness that we farewelled our Western Port Ward councillor Ray Brown in April 2021. Ray was an exceptional councillor and a true leader, someone who will always be remembered as an amazing advocate for his community. I feel honoured and privileged to have known Ray and to have witnessed his dedication to our community. I again welcome Councillor Cameron to Cardinia. It was great to see you meet the councillor group face to face for the first time last week, so that was great, Councillor Cameron. The ongoing impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in another challenging and uncertain year. Our priority continues to be our community, delivering essential services and providing assistance and support in any way that we can. I'm really proud of our business development team who's provided support to our local businesses. This has been appreciated and voiced to me by many. Hundreds of examples of our community supporting each other by volunteering, paying it forward, buying local, purchasing local items and takeaway. The storm events, we have experienced 2 very large storm events, weather events, right in the middle of a pandemic, back in June and just on the 29th of October. And I understand we've had we've had 4 storm events, but 2 most serious, but this is very unusual to have that many storm events in 1 year. Power outages for days, weeks. It has been a trying time for our community. I thank the SES, amazing emergency services. I thank other emergency services, the emergency support team up in the hills, chaplain services, and the many volunteers. It was just really pleasing to see the effort of our community during these tough times. I'd like to thank our staff from right across the organisation who responded obviously to the pandemic and also these storm events, our outdoor staff, emergency management, and everyone that helped out. I commend our community for your strength, your resilience, and the way in which you continue to support and look out for each other, whether it's pandemic or storm events. There's been some really good achievements despite the pandemic and the challenges. We've made sure that we've completed all the requirements of the Local Government Act. Thank you, the governance team. We've only got a couple of matters that need to be completed by December 21, but we're well on track of that. Imagine Cardinia was an amazing piece of work throughout the year. Starting back in November last year, we invited the community to share their hopes and aspirations for the future of our Shire. We received more than 1,600 contributions and formed the Imagine Cardinia's People's Panel. This feedback and input guided the development of our council plan, the community vision, the council budget and the financial plan. These documents will guide our strategic direction over coming years. Also, our Ageing Well strategy, disability access and inclusion action plan. So we're updating them at the moment, which is fantastic. The livability plan, we've had forums throughout the year to really update that and make that up to date. We continue to, together we can. We know that this pandemic has been very difficult for families and we've seen an increase in family violence, so we continue in that space, which is great. In 2021, we continue to provide important services and programs for families, children and young people in the Shire. Work has started on our 2 new integrated child and family centres in Ricks Road officer and also Timbertopping officer. And we also look forward to the Cardinia Youth Hub going to start construction in the coming months. It has been a very different year. Online meetings, online briefings. It can be challenging in that forum. I definitely saved on dry cleaning though, which was a bit of a bonus. Less events, unfortunately, less opportunities to meet the great people of Cardinia. But it has been just as busy as previous terms of mayor, but just different. Taking many calls, emails, people had time to email about issues, so a lot of correspondence. Representing Cardinia with MPs, ministers, etc. Many online events and forums, and I think things have changed forever, the way we conduct ourselves in the wider space of Victoria. You can get to more events when they're online. Not the same, but we're going to see a bit of a hybrid, I think. And I think I've attended more meetings because travel wasn't required. Personal highlights, the community resilience, seeing the community be resilient, supporting each other, supporting local businesses. I'm really proud of our community. Well over 95% of our community have received their first dose, and we're really climbing to that massive vaccination, and I'm really proud of our community doing that. Learnings, I think the pandemic has really demonstrated recreational spaces are really important for our community, whether it's walking trails, pedestrian bicycle links, parks, playgrounds. And I think council needs to continue to invest in these great places. Citizenship ceremonies, amazing. We only did a few, but people were so looking forward to getting their citizenship after the year that we had, so that was really good. This is going to get worse. Thanks to my wife Jackie, amazing 3 children, Max, Will and Maggie. Like for everyone, it was challenging, homeschool, working from home. During my term, Jackie completed her Masters, so I'm very proud of her. Once again, my children were very helpful, whether it was filming my online videos, being in the videos themselves, joining me and supporting me at events, including my last official duty, opening the Kath and Keith Ewinson playgrounds. Sorry, everyone. Okay, thanks Jackie, thanks my kids. Thank you to the community, fellow councillors, staff, senior management, and special thanks to Elise and Jenny for their amazing support. And also our comms team. They've done an amazing job supporting me this year and I appreciate that, but thank you to all staff. Looking forward, exciting times ahead. It really is. Having events now, it's going to be great. Getting to engage with the community face-to-face, in person, community sport and events. Looking forward to the Officer Town Centre finally being developed. It's great. We're seeing some action now, which is great, long awaited. The redevelopment of the Pakenham Town Centre, railway crossings, removals through Pakenham office at Beaconsfield, that's going to be great. Our road program, continuing on that. I would love to see a permanent home for the Career Up Motorcycle Club. We need to continue to work on that and obviously increase improving our community facilities. So it has been a real honour and privilege to be Mayor during these challenging 12 months. Maybe once in a lifetime event, I hope. Hope we don't have to go through it again. In November 2020, on the night I was elected, I spoke about the positives ahead, talking about the recovery period. The last 12 months have been a rollercoaster with COVID, open up and opening, locking down. The last 3 months of my term was particularly challenging for everyone. And when my term finished last week, we were again talking about recovery. And I forgot to mention the COVID recovery community group that Councillor Radford was involved in. I was really impressed with their actions throughout the year. So I feel for our local businesses, our residents, especially our young people. We have shown that we live in a great community with people that really care about each other. We live in the best place in the world. In the remaining years of this council, our goal is to make it an even better community. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, and please do not apologise. The emotion that you display in your address is a testament to your passion and dedication to the community. And I can tell you, over the 5 years that I've spent working with you as a councillor, you set the gold standard for what a councillor should be. So please, one more round of applause for your outstanding time as Mayor. The community owes you a debt of gratitude, Councillor Owen, so thank you. Now back to the business before us tonight. Minutes of previous meetings. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the previous meetings as listed? Councillor Moore. And a seconder, please. Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll now put that to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Declarations of interests. Councillors, do you have any interest to declare for tonight's meeting? There being none, I will move along to ordinary business. The Council conducts its meetings according to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for tonight's proceedings are as follows. Item 6.2.1, Gender Equality Monthly Report, withdrawn by Councillor Ross. Councillor Ross, to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation that Council stays informed of Cardinia's commitment and progress towards gender equality within the organisation and the community in general.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Radford. I will now go back to the mover to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really important objective that we have on Council, that we try and be cutting edge in this area, and we represent the community and display in the area of gender equality and equity a standard that shows what can be done. I must say we try and follow all the things like the Gender Equity Act 2020, the gender impact assessments that we do all the time on staff. We have gender surveys. We're trying to be leading in this area. I believe this is one of the areas as a council that we do an excellent job. You can always get better. You never let your guard down. And I think from my experience, and I've shared this many times, I must say, on all the organisations that I've been involved in, I've always, in fact, supported for the executive officer's role a female who was always the most outstanding candidate who put their hand up. In fact, on most occasions, they're so outstanding that they as soon as they come and present and they show you what they've been doing in the past, you just know automatically that they're the right person for the job. I must say on council here, it goes even further that we always look to the gender equity situation when we give people an opportunity. I know when our CEO Carol came and we had a flux of different people having to fill in for different roles, it was never ever about who the person was. It was just fair. Everybody got to go. Everybody got to go, and so many people got discovered who had probably been in roles for a long time that never ever had tried for different roles before, and they were diamonds in the rough. They had an opportunity to show what they could do. Sometimes it probably wasn't exactly the right fit, and you look for another fit for them and say, have another look. And now we've got many managers in the organisation who probably 20 or 30 years ago wouldn't have had that opportunity, but they do today, and it's a really good thing on council. We can actually stand proud of the fact that we do this really well. But I brought this item up because it's really important that we keep it first and foremost in our eyes and in our thoughts, that we try and be excellent at this, and we continue to do that. Anyway, I'll hand over to my second. I hope I didn't share too much. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll now go to Councillor Radford to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for withdrawing this item. I'd like to read about it each month as well. And in this month's monthly report, I wanted to highlight the gender survey that has been completed and will contribute to the Gender Equality Action Plan. So there was a 30% response rate to this survey, which is pretty on par with other local councils, which is at 32%. I wanted to highlight a particular question, which was in response to this question, gender not a barrier to success at Cardinia, and the responses were you could choose between strongly, disagree, neither, agree or disagree, strongly agree, don't know. I was really pleased to see that agree and strongly agree equated 72%. There was 10% who strongly disagree, so there is probably still a little bit of work within the organisation to improve that percentage. But I thought that was a really positive response, and the results of this survey will contribute towards the development of the Gender Equality Action Plan, which will aims to further improve this strong positive result that we've seen so far. So I just wanted to highlight that part of the report this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I will go back to the mover, Councillor Ross, to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Radford's comments on this, if you actually go down and read the report in the council papers or online, you'll find that on nearly all the questions we had under 10% people who didn't feel like they maybe there was some gender bias involved, or they just didn't understand properly sort of where it was at. But I just think that's excellent. I think I think if you did this same survey 30 years ago, you would have a whole different set of results from that. People wouldn't feel like they get an opportunity where maybe they do now. Anyway, I look forward to seeing the assessments that we do and the different professional development areas that we bring through the organisation to set the theme and the vision for the organisation and the culture within the organisation. I thank you, Mayor.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour, please raise your hands. I declare the item carried. Thank you. Moving to item 6.2.2, Community Asset Committees Update, withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations on your appointment. I move that Council considers the update as is presented in tonight's report regarding community asset committees within the Cardinia Shire, as is required under section 47.6 of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kowaczyk. Councillor Davies, if you would like to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. The report presented here is a summary of this year's actions and the list of committees. There's a lot of content, and I understand that all councillors will have read. Community asset committees are a new service being managed by council. This is a change required under the new Local Government Act of 2020. So Cardinia Shire Council, the council and the officers acknowledge and appreciate the vital role of volunteers and volunteer committees, and we're committed to supporting them in the care of our public spaces. Notably, some neighbouring councils have actually taken over the volunteer committee roles and forced them to abandon, and our organisation is keen to support them. The key issue here is the risk. Volunteers don't have a duty to us, and council as a body does have a duty to them. We need to ensure their safety. We need to hold each and every volunteer to the same safety requirements of any contractor we engage. This is both a legal requirement and a moral. And there are lots of opportunities for a refinement of this process. As now council managed requirements are being put on these volunteer committees, and it commenced in lockdown, there's been teething issues. And our staff commenced this liaison with these communities whilst in remote working environments. I mean, that's not ideal, having to do it via video call. But we're doing okay, and it's actually working very well for some community asset committees, but it is proving challenging for others. So to conclude, I do want to acknowledge that this is not perfect, but we'll keep working on it. Our council appreciates our volunteers that manage these reserves. They do an amazing job. There's usually significantly more pride and care that a paid contractor would put into it. Our community will benefit, and we will support you. We're committed to do that. I'd like to commend the quality information that is provided on the dedicated page on Council's website, and the first point of contact that our committees have, our dedicated liaison officer, Cameron. In conclusion, I'd like to thank our community and all council officers for their work to date. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Kowaczyk, to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I seconded this item so that Councillor Davies could speak to it. I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I will go back to the mover, Councillor Davies, to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. I reconfirm that I move that Council considers the update within tonight's report regarding the community asset committees. This is a requirement under section 47 of the Local Government Act. Thank you.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.3.1, adoption of complaints policy, withdrawn by Councillor Kowaczyk. Councillor Kowaczyk, you have a motion that differs from the officer's recommendation. Councillor Kowaczyk, over to you to move this motion.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I move that Council 1 adopts the complaints policy subject to amendments to the following clauses. Clause 4.1.2 be amended to read: if you are dissatisfied with our decision and how we responded to your complaint, we will ask you if you would like to escalate your complaint. If you would like to escalate your complaint, or if we deem that your complaint needs further consideration, we will refer it to the relevant team or manager for investigation. And Clause 4.3 be amended to read: Complaints about the Chief Executive Officer will be referred to the General Manager of Customer, People and Performance for investigation on behalf of the Mayor. And finally, acknowledge and thank the Cardinia Shire community for its contribution to the development of the complaints policy.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Redford. Over to you, Councillor Kowaczyk, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield, and thank you, Councillor Radford. I've withdrawn this policy tonight to highlight to the community that Cardinia Shire Council is adopting a new complaints policy. This comes on the back of the new Local Government Act 2020 and creates better outcomes in the way that Council handles, escalates and resolves complaints. It provides clarity around what happens when a complaint is logged and more structure around the escalation of complaints. This complaints policy is a formal expression of Council's commitment to providing a fair, transparent and consistent process for community members when they wish to make a complaint. With specific regard to the amendments that I've attached to this motion, there are some wording changes within the clauses that I identified as needing strengthening. This will serve to better protect and inform both council officers and community members about the course of action that follows should further investigation be required about a complaint or if the resident would like to escalate it. Now, I think it's fair to say that local governments receive a lot of requests and complaints, and how we deal with them is paramount to serving the interests of our community. It's important that all complaints are heard, acknowledged and responded to ensure our community maintains trust in the institution of local government. I want to thank the officers involved for working with me and creating this policy, as well as the community for their engagement and giving up their time. Overall, we've developed a really robust policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. I will now go to the seconder, Councillor Bradford, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk, for withdrawing this item. I think Councillor Kowaczyk has summarised it very well. You've put a lot of time and effort into your proposed motion, which I support, and so I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? There being none, I will go back to Councillor Kowaczyk to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Radford. On the back of the adoption of this policy, there will be training programs rolled out for staff in the organisation. Overall, as I've mentioned, this new policy provides more clarity to the community in how their complaints are handled, processed and responded to. In addition to councillors listening to and advocating for their community, complaints and requests are a great way for council to get direct feedback from residents, and this is one way that Cardinia Shire is committed to improving that process. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.4.2, IYU Athletics Track Civil Construction, withdrawn by Councillor Ross. Oh, sorry, I did skip one. My apologies. I'm moving ahead of myself. Let's move back. So, item 6.4.1, Quarterly Financial Report, withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Councillor Davies to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council receives and notes the Quarterly Financial Report for the period 1 July 2021 to 30 September 2021 and notes that the Chief Executive Officer, as required under Section 97.3 of the Local Government Act 2020, is of the opinion that a revised budget is not required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Ross. I'll go back to you, Councillor Davies, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross. I have withdrawn this report for council endorsement and comment. The report presented for consideration tonight summarises council's financial performance for the quarter ending 30 September 2021. It includes an income statement, balance sheet, a cash flow statement, and then a capital works summary. Also included is a summary of financial performance against the Victorian Auditor General's Office, VAGO, financial sustainability indicators. Most notably, there is a significant impact of the COVID pandemic on our forecasted and expended capital programs. However, this is noted and understood. I confirm that I move tonight seeking council support in noting the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Ross, to speak next.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davies. Just in relation to this, anyone who reads through it will see It far outweighs what was expected for the year in the favourable categories in just about every single section of it. I think that's outstanding. That leaves council, as was pointed out by Councillor Davies, not having to do a revised budget, which is excellent. I must say, when I look through the financials of our council compared to when I first got onto council, we used to have Vago sit in on all our meetings and they weren't allowed to leave and they had to report back on everything we did because our borrowings going back 12 years ago was so great. And council have brought that down, and I must say it's outstanding that we do keep ourselves in a position where a lot of options are open on our spending and borrowing to do the things that we need to do. Anyway, for anyone who reads it, it's good news.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this item? I see no one, so I'll go back to Councillor Davies to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for your comments. It's very interesting to hear the history behind it and to speak concisely about a whole lot of financial information is quite hard. But I will confirm that tonight, Council, I move that we receive and note the quarterly financial report for the period 1 July 2021 to 30 September 2021, and that we note that the Chief Executive Officer, as required under Section 97.3 of the Local Government Act 2020, is of the opinion that a revised budget is not required. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare the item carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 6.4.2, IYU Athletics Track Civil Construction, withdrawn by Councillor Ross. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation that council award the tenders submitted by Polytran Proprietary Limited for $3.138223 million and 75 cents, excluding GST, excluding the sports field lighting, high jump and pole vault mats covers, be accepted by council for the contract 21-030 IYU Athletics Tracks Civil Works. The remaining tenders be advised accordingly and the common seal of the council be affixed to the contract documents.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder, please, for this item? Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll now go back to Councillor Ross to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I must say this project has been an amazing project. I can remember when I first got on council in 2008, it was probably one of the first detailed master plans that we actually requested in 2009. And back then it was seen as there were sheep wandering down there on the land, there were no houses around the area at the time, and it was a little bit of a dream. If you actually looked at, we had no soccer fields except one that was sort of down in Bunyip that they turned out of a field into a soccer field. We had the soccer club using the middle of the athletics track to do some training, which then they got the Cardinia Road Oval to use, which was a football oval, which was used for soccer at first. And so therefore and the athletics club, if anyone ever went to the athletics club, I would say the toilet setup and the storage area there was the worst in all of Cardinia Shire. It was really, really ordinary and hadn't really been touched, it looked like, in 50 years. The group down there have worked really hard to keep kids and athletics alive in Cardinia Shire. I must say they've done an amazing job through all that, and they are so well deserved to get a new athletics facility down there. I must say the whole area, I can remember on the journey, there were certain times when the project was going to cost in the millions of dollars, and there were some councillors of the day who actually voted and put the option that they didn't want to go ahead with it and they'd rather move the money somewhere else. And we fortunately had enough councillors to stand up and say, no, these people have waited enough time, they deserve their opportunity to get a new facility. And I must say the new facility, for anyone who's been somewhere where in Casey or down in Duncan McKinnon Reserve, or you go over to Casey, will be an absolutely outstanding area. No longer will our kids have to be moved to either Duncan McKinnon Reserve or Cranbourne or Knox to do their inter-school athletics. They'll be able to do it here on a synthetic track, which doesn't matter what time of year. It could even rain like it's been raining, and you can still actually run around on it. It won't have mud and the whole lot. It will have an outstanding pavilion as well that will be built, an extra 400 car parks, and it will just be absolutely outstanding. I must say there's so many groups who will benefit from this. We've got the Pakenham park run people who might be able to use it as a little bit of a base. We've also got the Pakenham road runners. We'll have the potential to have a senior Pakenham athletics group as well come and use it, and I'm sure it will be able to use as a regional facility as well. And I must say, for anyone who goes down there to what we call, my wife and I, Camp COVID, where people go and get tested down there, you look at the left-hand side as you drive in, and that will be where the athletics track will be. It will be absolutely outstanding, and I think it will really be a little bit of a mark of, Cardinia has come a long way, and they really, really deserve. And I think it's one of the few sports who will be upgraded and have something to be extremely proud of. And I'm sure the club will grow, because at the moment you've got people, if you went down to where they perform at the moment, if it rained like this, you probably couldn't be able to do anything on there for about a month or something. But then you'll have an all-weather facility. It's taken a long time to get to this point, and I think that people will be extremely happy with the result that they get at the end of it. So anyway, I will let the second have something to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I will now go to Councillor Kowalczyk to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I'm very happy to second this tonight. Councillor Ross, my fellow councillors will know this has been a passion project of his for some time, and it's clear to hear you speak with such passion. So I'm sure you're really excited about this one tonight, Councillor Ross. As you've mentioned, Cardinia has been crying out for a high-end athletics facility for a very long time, and we've had conversations along this line. And so the positive benefits, therefore, that come from that are just simply endless. Obviously, all residents in Cardinia will benefit from this, although it is in Pakenham. To have something like this local, as you propose, having to travel to Knox and these other parts of the state is really, really an exciting thing. So obviously very exciting to be able to award the tender tonight and to begin construction on a project that's been a long time coming. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Do I have any other councillors? Councillor Moore, I'll go to you next to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's really an honour to share this item with Councillor Ross and Councillor Kowalczyk tonight. I remember it well. The excitement in the gallery, a lot bigger gallery than we've got here this evening, but the excitement was for when the athletics club was announced that we'd moved forward, upgraded the finances to include this fantastic facility in the IYU. But what is more pleasing than anything else to see many users use this together as a community, not just being for one particular user group. We've got the soccer club there as well at the moment, and I mean, there's the benefits to our community is unbelievable what it can do for our community here. They've got 3 grass soccer pitches, the one synthetic, as Councillor Ross mentioned. We've got the pavilions and 400 car parks, sealed car parks. What a great result with the athletic track and, of course, the passive open space we also have in this area, which is really wonderful thing. As Councillor Ross and Councillor Kowalczyk has mentioned already, you really got to get down there to see the facility, what it is now and what it's going to be in the future. So all I can say is an active community is an attractive community. And that's what we're going to have down there. So I think that this is a great result for us as a council, and I'm looking forward to see a finalisation of this in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any other councillors that wish to speak to this item? I might just add a few words myself to say this is a fantastic project to see the evolution of this master plan and this regional athletics track which will be utilised by the entire Shire it'll be the best facility of its kind in the region. And the new facility will meet the IAAF and the World Athletic Standards, 10 lanes. That's fantastic. This is a great outcome for those people interested in this sport. I did little athletics back when I was about 6 years old, and I was quite good. I could keep running. I don't know why. It might have been my dad and his belt that I was running from when I was a real little kid. But I was pretty good at running once upon a time. Anyway, I don't know where that came from, but councillors, thank you. This is a great project. So really happy to see the words of support come across the table tonight. And I'll put this forward. I will now go back to the mover of the item, Councillor Ross, to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, other councillors, for joining in the excitement at this facility. I must say, I must give some credit for the facility costing $1 million less than what it should have, because what happened was, years ago, the council staff worked out that we needed a lot of fill in there to lift up the flood level so it wouldn't flood. And what they did was the council staff at the time worked out that where the developers were pulling dirt out of some of the areas, rather than take it to a tip somewhere or somewhere else, they could come and put it on the reserve down there to lift up the fill level. So therefore, there was $1 million set aside to lift up the level for it, that we were going to pay for fill to come in, but we did a deal. And we said, you can bring it down here for nothing, you can dump it in there, and as long as if it's a certain level. It did take us about a year to accumulate longer than what we had anticipated if we had purchased all the soil, but still there was $1 million saved on that site alone, merely because they were innovative enough to work out a way that we could actually lift it up. And for anyone who goes down there, you'll notice it works really successful. It doesn't flood at all. The creek might get a bit wet, but it doesn't actually go into the ovals or anything like that. So they've done an outstanding job. I must say, on the journey too, there's been some other councillors on our past council. We tried to move the project forward. Which one of them's still here? We tried to move the project forward, hoping that it would come a little bit in advance, but then council, through the Growing Suburbs Fund, got money for something else, so we had to move the money back that was going to go for there back to its original time. So anyway, it will be on time and built. I think it's really exciting. And for anyone who's seen that facility not only being used for what it is at testing at the moment, the Pakenham Sikh group run a sports day down there, and it goes for 2 days generally. And that has up to about 20,000 people come to use those facilities. And for anyone who's ever been down, they'll see they give out free food, free rides, free everything. And they do lots of sports from around Australia. And they even have a game called Kabaddi. And if anyone knows anything about Kabaddi, it's a little bit cross between a rugby, a football, a chasey sort of thing. It's as big as the AFL in India. And when they beam out of their competition, it goes to 500,000 people in India. So that's the sort of potential that if we build up these really good facilities, other people, and we talk about our multicultural hub, they come and embrace it. They think it's great, and they come along and they add to our community. So I shudder to think, the different groups that will come forward and use the athletics facility. I think it'll be great. And for anyone who saw COVID, when you could only just go outside a little bit, if you could see the soccer fields down there towards the end of the day, there were so many mums, like mums and dads and kids using it. The all-weather ground particularly, doesn't matter how wet it is, you can go out there and still use it. And it's a great asset, so many options, regardless of the weather. So anyway, I look forward to this. I've gone over me 2 minutes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Well spoken, and it's great to hear your passion towards this item. Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.5.2, the major projects report, withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Councillor Davies to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council notes the major projects report.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Moore. Councillor Davies, back to you to
Thank you,
speak to this
Mayor,
item.
and thank you, Councillor Moore, for seconding the motion. I am seeking just to note the report. I have withdrawn it as I would like to raise the impact on project delivery being experienced due to the COVID-19 restrictions. The restrictions, including the construction industry's lockdown, have had specific impact on Council's capital program. Delays are also due to the contractors' availability due to the vaccination requirements, so reduced numbers of employees are available. There's been issues with material supplies, and this is also impacting the project costs. The project managers are working closely with contractors to minimise the impact this is having. However, we do anticipate that there will be more delays. This being said, many of our major projects have still progressed, including the major works at Tumuk Reserve and numerous road projects. So I'd like to thank the council staff and the contractors for their commitment during these challenging times. I would also like to raise Officer District Park. Unfortunately, stage 1, which was scheduled for commencement this financial year, has been delayed. The reason for this is that unexpectedly, 2 of the key funding grants that council had believed we were quite likely to attract were actually not successful. So what happens now? I'm advised that council officers are working away at a reduced scope, and this will be presented to council in the coming weeks. The change stage 1 may be advertised as soon as in the early months of 2022, and that as the ward councillor, I will continue to work with the council officers and ensure that our community is kept informed. There is a lot of interest in this park. It's going to be an amazing jewel in Tumuk Ward and Cardinia more broadly, perhaps rivalling Lakeside Lake, perhaps even better. I'm really looking forward to seeing it built. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council officers, for their work.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I will now go to Councillor Moore, the seconder, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I reserve my right to speak. I just wanted to second it, so it gave the opportunity for Councillor Davies to speak to this item.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone who reads through this report will absolutely read. I always look to see the funding sort of levels, where the money comes from, because the more money that comes from outside, the less money our ratepayers have to pay to do things. And I think it really needs to be emphasised and noted in this that the federal government and Jason Woods actually delivered a whole lot of things in this area, particularly with intersections and those sort of things, that without his advocacy we wouldn't have those things. There's other things in there where we've got state government who have put in. There's also developer contributions, so often ratepayers don't actually have to put in out of their rates, but it comes through the developer contributions in that area, which actually does a whole lot of development work too. I think it needs to be noted, because without those people coming on side and working as a team and a partnership, we just wouldn't get all these things done. Anyway, for anyone who wants to read, you can sort of see it. Maybe you mightn't have the exact amount of money that was put in, but I can guarantee it's significant to make some of these projects happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Ryan, I'll go to you next to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'll just keep it short and brief. Just a couple of projects that are happening in Hinty Wood that I'm really, really pleased with. There has been, as Councillor Davies said, there has been delays in materials and time bases, and also the COVID and whether people have been had their second injection or not. So the Pakenham Regional Tennis Centre Pavilion Extension, this is fully funded by council. The project is scheduled to be completed in late March, but due to materials and delays, it could be a little bit longer, so maybe a little bit later in the year. The tender assessment and value management exercise continues to align the construction costs to the budget allocation. The project may be impacted by COVID, as we've just said, so I'm sorry for repeating. So we'll look forward to that. It's the extension is Pakenham Tennis Club is moving across to the tennis centre. It's been a long time coming. We started the project in 2016, and it's taken that long to encourage and look forward to having this extension done. So it will have a new kitchenette, a unisex toilet facility, balcony overlooking the courts, provision for 2 people with a lift. And I think that's really great because people with disabilities will be able to go up on that balcony. So I think that's really, really important that we're addressing that disabilities in wheelchairs in particular, or walking frames or walking sticks. My Place youth facility, a little bit of delay in that, but that project is jointly funded by Council, the Victorian Government's Growing Suburbs Fund, and the Australian Government. Project is scheduled to be completed in December 2022. The relocation and expansion of My Place youth facility to a parcel of council-owned land in James Street, Pakenham. The new facility will accommodate approximately 1,000 square metres of building structure, together with landscaping and associated car parking, which will be designed to engage and support young people from 12 years old to 25 years of age. Well, we'd all fit under that, wouldn't we? We're still all kids at heart. I know I am. And the last one, the Multicultural Hub feasibility study. This project is also jointly funded by Council and the Australian Government. It's undertaken a feasibility study, including community and key stakeholders consultation, that will underline purpose for the hub, range of community activities and services to be offered at the hub, potential location sites, service model, design features that should be included, case studies and similar hubs in and around different areas that we're looking at as well. The concept of the design includes the cost estimate, and the feasibility study is to be completed in October, which is just finished. And so that's my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I might just add my own, just to say I support Councillor Davies' sentiments previously, mentioning the disruptions we've had due to the pandemic, and I note that there is projects all across our Shire in everyone's wards affecting all aspects of our community, for projects being delayed and services being delayed over this time. I ask for patience and consideration towards this, and I really look forward to seeing some of these projects which have been delayed, and there's numerous amounts in my ward as well, to see them get off the ground and be finalised in the coming months into next year. So hopefully we've all got something to celebrate moving forward, and we don't have to we can move on from all disruptions that we've previously faced. So thank you, councillors. I'll now go back to the mover, Councillor Davies, to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore, for seconding the motion. Councillor Ryan, for your feedback, oversight and passion for the Henty Ward projects. And Councillor Ross, thank you for the highly relevant comments about the diverse funding sources. Cardinia's rates revenue would not fund this incredible amount of investment, and the multiple funding sources, our officers in their relationship building, their collaboration and advocacy, it's truly wonderful. Our community, now and future, is going to benefit from this investment. Thank you must be said to the state and federal politicians and staff for working with us. It is appreciated, and we look forward to hopefully strengthening these relationships in the future. Councillors, I confirm that I seek your support tonight in noting the major project reports. Thank you.
Councillors, I'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare the item carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.5.3, performance and growth reports, withdrawn by Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the performance and growth reports for quarter 1, 2021 to 22 be received and noted by council.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Radford. I'll now go back to Councillor Davies to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Radford, for seconding my motion. I've prepared a lot of notes, and I'm quickly going to start timing myself to hold myself accountable. So tonight we are noting the first quarterly report for the 2021 to 22 financial year. This is the first quarterly report for the new council plan, 21 to 25, that we adopted on June 21. In addition to the council plan, our budget, our financial plan and revenue and rating plan reflect our commitment to responsible financial management whilst continuing to deliver vital community services and infrastructure. Our council plan has 5 strategic objectives, each with a series of strategies, initiatives and indicators. Council committed to undertake work on 36 council plan initiatives during the 2021 to 22 financial year, and 35 of these are on track. The organisation's service request performance for the quarter is 84%, below our target of 90%, but still close. And given we are mid-pandemic, we've had unprecedented emergency events. It's a result that I'm quite happy with. For now, and our customer support service level, which is based on the percentage of calls answered within 300 seconds, is 77% for the quarter, below the 80% target. Unfortunately, Cardinia has had a high level of staff turnover in their contact centre, and several staff actually upskilled and took secondments and other permanent roles at Cardinia, which is the reason for this. The report also notes that our population growth within the Shire, it's increased. There are now 4 households moving to the area per day. While the subdivision land activity is starting to gain its momentum again amidst the pandemic, the construction of the sealed roads and footpaths within the new estates remains slow due to the reduction in the completion of the estate development, and this will be monitored. The significant impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic are still being felt by our council and our community, and the organisation has committed to deliver essential services and support our community through these challenging times. The report also shows how there is so much more to local government than roads, rates and rubbish, and the report also raises our representation for our local residents and businesses from within to outside the Shire. So this representation, it's wide-ranging. The council works with all levels of government to lobby for action on important local issues and works hard to influence government priorities that benefit our local communities. Council also works with other groups of councils, such as the South East Melbourne and interface groups, to facilitate investment into the broader region. The council continues to work collaboratively with the state government in responding to the coronavirus pandemic, and closely follow advice being received while the situation has rapidly evolved. Cardinia's primary concerns are supporting the health and wellbeing of our staff and our community and the continuation of the essential services. The council continues to rely heavily on rate revenue to fund the provision of infrastructure and services. Council is limited in the amount of revenue it can achieve through rates. It's fixed at a 1.5% growth per year. So we have a strong focus on seeking grants to assist the financial sustainability, and proudly a total of $5.87 million was funded via grants this quarter. Finally, the staged implementation of the Local Government Act continues with revised policies, plans and initiatives, and Cardinia's Audit Committee are monitoring this with a fixed timetable. And as mentioned previously tonight, the Gender Equality Act, which we discuss at Council each meeting publicly, requires Council to consider gender equality not only in its workforce, but its policies, programs and services that the Council delivers. So I reconfirm, councillors, that I move that Council notes this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll now go to Councillor Radford, the seconder, to speak to this item.
Sorry about that. My mask got caught in my earring and I was stuck. I'm sure there's other women here who understand that issue that we have these days. Yes, thank you for Councillor Davies for withdrawing this item. What I really like to read about this item was it shows that there is still a really strong growth in this area. So in the past quarter, there has been approximately 4 households moving to the area per day. And it showed that there were 487
7 births in the Shire this quarter, which is 6% higher than the same time last year. So the enrolments for maternal and child health, which includes the number of babies and children from birth to school age, has increased by 7% than compared to the same time last year. So this really strongly supports the development of the Ricks Road and Timbertop integrated child centres, which is something that I've been very, very supportive of. And so I'm really happy that we're developing in those growth areas and supporting those residents moving into our Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Just highlighting a few things out of this report. It was noted that we had 4 families a day moving in, and that's really amazing that at the moment a lot of people wouldn't realise that. They'd think with a population, not many people coming into Australia, not migrating like they were, skilled workers not coming in, that places just are in limbo and people aren't moving around. People are moving around. They move to areas, interface councils, because it's affordable housing. And as the strain and prices of housing goes up and the rent goes up, people look for affordable housing to live in. And quite often what they discover is closer to Melbourne that the rents have gone up so much that you can actually afford, and it's easier to buy your own place and move into it and pay it off rather than pay rent. So that's why we are inundated with people wanting to live in Cardinia Shire. During the report, people can read through. There's still 19,000 approximate lots to be developed inside the growth corridor. And that's going to happen all in the next probably 15 years or 20 years. So that will be an ongoing thing that we as a council learn to cope with, which we have done over all my time on council, and I think before it. I think we do it about as good as anyone can do it at the moment. We do have growth issues at the time, but as it says, as you read through the report, it talks about with the rate cap being at 1.5, we definitely need, and we always did under rate capping, we heavily are reliant upon contributions or revenue coming from other areas other than ratepayers. And if people look through this, they will see that we applied for 13 different grant applications. We lodged over the first quarter of the year, and we were successful in 8 of those so far, bringing in $5.876 million. So the amount of things that you can do with $5.8676 million is a whole lot more than what you could have done if you didn't get that money. Anyway, I just think it's a really good report. It always gives us a bit of a snapshot about how things are going, because often we don't see those things like the amount of births being in Cardinia Shire, and that just displays why we need maternal health centres. We need kinders, because naturally if there's births, there's maternal health centres, there's kindergartens, there's schools, there's high schools as it all flows through, and all the other associated needs and services in the community. Anyway, I think it's a really good read. Sometimes if you read through this, it opens your eyes and you just realise all the different things that we're doing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? There being none, I will go back to Councillor Davies, the mover, to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Radford, for seconding and supporting, and Councillor Ross for your comments as well. It is a staggering figure: 4 more households per day, 487 births this quarter, 6% higher than last year. So that's 20 more kinder classes for 2025 that this council is going to have to provide for in terms of the infrastructure, the buildings. Perhaps the 19,000 more lots may fill up quicker than expected. As councillors, we know that we live in the best part of the world, and the 4 households per day are learning this too. Welcome to the new residents. The majority of us were new residents at some stage, except Councillor Owen, who's lived here all his life. But we're growing at Cardinia, we're growing sustainably, and as your council, we do commit to providing good strategic governance over this growth. So thank you for listening, and councillors, I move that Council notes this report. Thank you.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Next up, item 6.5.4, Environment Council Plan Initiatives Quarterly Report, withdrawn by Councillor Kowalczyk. Councillor Kowalczyk.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council note the report.
Councillors, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Moore. Councillor Kowalczyk, I'll now go to you to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield, and thank you to my friend Councillor Graham Moore for your second. This quarterly report provides an update on actions and initiatives relating to Council Plan Priority 3, which is valuing our natural assets and supporting our biodiversity to thrive. The big takeaway, and which is why I wanted to withdraw this item tonight, was the Indigenous plant giveaway. Overwhelmingly successful. Vouchers for the program were fully allocated within 24 hours, so it was really, really good to see. In September, which is the one just gone we just had, this was targeted towards larger properties, your friends groups, your local schools, etc. Stage 2 will be held in April 2022 for a more broader giveaway, which will incorporate smaller properties as well. This is the first year that Cardinia Shire Council has started doing the combined giveaway to the small and the large properties. And due to the success of the trial, the program will run again in 22-23. However, we're going to make some modifications to ensure that more people and groups can take part because, as I said, the demand was just through the roof. I also want to just briefly mention Deep Creek Reserve. I think it was announced pretty recently that Deep Creek Reserve is a finalist in the Premier Sustainability Awards, and I think Councillor Moore's going to touch on that. The award's going to be announced on Tuesday, the 23rd of November, but we're very proud to have that within our borders of Cardinia. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Moore, to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's an honour to second this item as been brought up. Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for bringing this item up tonight. I actually wasn't going to mention the Deep Creek Reserve, but I'm going to. I'm going to be at the finals and hopefully be there to see the award be accepted for Cardinia Shire on that night. It'd be an honour to be there, Councillor. But I do want to focus on in this report the heritage grants, which is in this report, the successful grant recipients. It's a really thing close to my heart, the heritage grants of Cardinia Shire. It's been there for a while now, and it does support our community with our heritage overlays in the Cardinia Shire planning scheme. The grants are a dollar for dollar grant, $1 from council, $1 from the applicant, to a maximum of $5,000. Unfortunately, we don't get enough in our community applying for this heritage grant, and I think we should. I do recognise that this year we had a community engagement undertaken in Bunyip with a flyer drop into the businesses in the main street in Bunyip, the precinct, to encourage tenants and owners to apply for these grants. But unfortunately, there were no one took up this application of this overlay. So, which is unfortunate, but however, it's going to be trialled again next year, and I hope in years to come in other townships, so we can see this taken fully up, these heritage grants, to look after our buildings. The application closed at the end of May 2021-22, and they've all been assessed now, with the successful applicants notified in July. 2 applicants were successful. One was the conservation works at Mallow House, which is in Cooirup. I know this house. It's the house of the, not the House of the Rising Sun, it's the house of the Cooirup Historical Society. And it's really, really great to see them doing this beautiful home, putting some work into that as a heritage grant will do. But the big one is the replacement of the original front fence at the Narnagoon Union Church site. So bring it back to its original state, and at the moment it's got a sort of a temporary type wire fence, so it's going to be wonderful to see that brought back to its original state in the Narnagoon area in the main street. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any other councillors that wish to speak this item? And I see Councillor Ross. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just highlighting this this really good report. I'll give just a little bit of a spotlight into this. It was mentioned the Deep Creek Reserve All Abilities area, which has been a finalist in the Sustainability Victoria Awards this year. I think just a little bit of a history lesson about how close that again was to not being what it is today. I can remember when I first ran for council, that land had actually been sold by a previous council, much to Councillor Owen didn't support that either. And when I ran for council, I actually didn't support it either. They'd actually received the deposit for the land. I think they sold it for approximately around $34 million. They'd already received the $3.1 million deposit council had. The problem they had was they needed to get it rezoned from what it was. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. They took it all the way to the minister, and the minister said it wasn't in the community's interest to sell it off. We wouldn't have a golf club in Pakenham where it is today. We wouldn't have the All Abilities area there, and we wouldn't have a home for the Environment Coalition in that place either. It would have been wall-to-wall housing from the highway all the way down to the back. So that was an awesome stand, and I must say the Cardinia Resident Ratepayers Association at the time, with Mrs Shallard and other people, stood up for the whole development not to go ahead. There were councillors too who stood up to it as well. I was pictured down there, we were putting a seat down on the creek there somewhere, trying to put something in there because cows were wandering around. In the end, the council had to hand the money back to the developer, and it got retained, and we just had to wait for the day that we could get some money to develop the land, which through the Growing Suburbs Fund we managed to pull some money which developed the back for the All Abilities playground, which is quite outstanding. If anyone goes down there to have a look, for all those people who stood up way back then, it just goes to show if you stand up for something and you have a red hot crack, you never know, you can succeed and something really good can come out of it for generations to come. Anyway, that was a really good success story. I think it's wonderful. As more money comes in that area, there'll be more development of pathways down the back, and instead of just being a water inundated area for Melbourne Water down the back, they can actually develop things really well today into areas that people can walk and enjoy the environment down there. Anyway, I'll probably interested some people with a bit of a history lesson, but on the other hand, I just think it just goes to show as councillors, if you stand up for something and you try and make some change, even though we were overwhelmed at the time and we probably didn't have the votes, but we hung in there, in the end things can change and things can happen, and hopefully that for those people who live there, they're enjoying not wall-to-wall houses, they're enjoying something that they can go and wander around and have a look. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to this item? There being none, I will go back to Councillor Kowalczyk to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I wanted to touch on this item tonight to specifically highlight the Indigenous plant giveaway, but I do want to thank my fellow councillors Graham Moore and Colin Ross for their input and passion in this space. This quarterly report, as we know, provides an opportunity for Council to update the community on initiatives and actions in the environment, heritage and biodiversity space. And I strongly encourage anyone watching tonight, anyone in the community, if those three fields pique your interest, to please take the time to read the report and learn about the actions that Council are driving in this space. Lastly, before I hand it back to you, Mayor, I just want to really strongly thank the officers for putting together this report and for all their hard work in protecting and in strengthening Cardinia's environment. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes discussion of items withdrawn. May I have a mover, please, to adopt the officer's recommendation for the remaining items? Councillor Moore, and a seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Councillors, I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to councillor reports. Councillors, are there any matters you wish to report? Councillor Davies, I see you first.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to briefly raise that councillors Cardinia Shire Council is a member of SECA, which is the Southeastern Climate Change Alliance. Anyway, I've mucked that up, but we're really proud to have a membership with this and the other councils. And this week, the Mayor and I, as the councillor delegates, were issued with a report in world-leading climate change action in relation to electric vehicles and charging stations. And I'd like to mention this and commend the council officers and SECA for their work on this matter, to actually have a plan which will enable our community to make that change confidently to an electric vehicle. We'll have, this is much needed, and it's really exciting given we are so car dependent in the way our transport system is set up at the moment. I'd also like to acknowledge that concurrently we have some advanced work in terms of environmental biolinks being developed across Cardinia Shire, where this is really promising because it will provide corridors for wildlife, for biodiversity, for breeding programs, and the pioneering environmental work that I've come across in the past month is something that I'm really excited about, and I'd like to commend all involved. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Are there any other councillors with reports they'd like to present? Councillor Owen.
Thanks, Mayor, and I think I've got myself together now. That's all right. Firstly, I want to congratulate you, Mayor, on your appointment. I wish you all the best for the coming year. On last Wednesday, I had the pleasure of attending a thank you and farewell morning tea at the Emerald Museum for a long-term volunteer, Beryl Bartachek. She's over 90 years old. She's volunteered at the Emerald Museum for over 28 years, and she is a treasure up in Emerald. I love how she directly provides advice, and very direct and to the point. And she does muck around, Beryl, but she had to sort of step down from her volunteering duties just because of her failing eyesight. But she's still going to be an emergency assistance when required. But we just acknowledge the amazing work of Beryl at the Emerald Museum. A couple of weeks ago, I attended the AGM of the Cardinia Deer Coalition, an amazing group. Feral deer is a real problem across Cardinia, and at the AGM they described their recent surveys along the Cardinia Creek corridor and also at the BNCR, the Beaconsfield Reservoir. They engaged a number of aerial surveys and produced 2 reports of those 2 locations, and it really highlighted we do have a problem with deer across Cardinia. Their numbers is very significant, and it took them by surprise, and I found that the data was amazing, and I hope Council will work with that group to address the deer problem across Cardinia. Also, last week it was reported in the Gazette, Jeanette Bartlett, who is a kinder teacher at Beaconsfield, who has been a kinder teacher for almost 40 years in the Beaconsfield community. She's retiring this year. So she's an amazing teacher, early years educator for our young people, particularly in Beaconsfield. She's much loved and she loves her community, and I just want to acknowledge Jeanette. This year, Wood Street Beaconsfield Kindergarten celebrates 50 years of educating our young people. I was a student at Wood Street, and I hope I think Maggie's registered and enrolled to go there 3-year-old kinder next year. So that's a really good achievement for that kinder. Finally, last month we had Seniors Month. And I was really pleased the way our officers, ran that festival. Very different from previous years. It was an online forum, but some really good speakers. And our staff helped me write a letter to our seniors across Cardinia. Provided a small cookie, and it was just a letter of just touching base. Obviously with the trying times that we've had, and I got so many emails and even cards of thank you. To the Mayor, thanking council staff for their assistance, and that letter meant a lot to a lot of people. It was great just reaching out to our seniors during that difficult time. So thank you to those who provided that feedback, and I'll pass that on to our staff. It was really great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Bradford, I'll hand the microphone to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to quickly touch on Remembrance Day. I laid a wreath at the Officer Memorial Gates. If you drive down Princes Highway, you'll notice those gates at the Officer Rec Reserve. It was an unofficial event because with our COVID restrictions, who knew whether you could have people standing next to each other or not? So I had the honour and pleasure of meeting there with lifelong residents Rob and Carol Porter, and that was lovely. And there were construction workers working at the Officer Rec Reserve, 5 of them who joined us, pulled the flags down halfway and then back up. And it was such a beautiful moment. Much better sometimes a spontaneous one than a very well organised one. So it was one that I'll remember. I also wanted to quickly highlight the official openings of the Kath Roberts Reserve and the Keith Ewinson Park. Our outgoing Mayor, Councillor Owen, did a wonderful job at those events. It had been a long time since we had been to any event, there was federal, state and local government all working together to upgrade these playgrounds, which was great. What I loved, though, was the attendance of family members of the namesakes of the playgrounds, and it was really nice to see them. That some of them had photos with, Kath Roberts. I think they were their great-grandchildren or grandchildren, and it was lovely to have that moment and give that nod to the namesake and meet their family. So well done on your final official event there, Brett. It was great. And that was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Kowaczyk, I see you first.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. Just wanted to touch on, the attendance. I attended the Kath Roberts Reserve with my family and kids, and obviously there was other councillors there, which has been mentioned. But it was just so nice to get back into the community for those events, and particularly to bring my kids to them. Having 2 lockdown babies has been pretty tough, so it's been really nice for them to get out and about and start to enjoy some of the playgrounds we have in Cardinia. Also just wanted to again highlight some of the superstars we have in the Court Advisory Group, particularly for their work as community champions to champion the vaccine. So I've asked the council and the mayor to present them with formal appreciation certificates, and I think it's so important that council recognises those in the community who have worked extremely hard, such as these members that we have, and I won't mention their names. I've mentioned them privately, reached out to them privately, but just to ensure their communities were receiving the correct information. And this is work they've done on top of their full-time jobs, on top of their commitments with their families and their work with the Court Advisory Group. So I just really want to shout out to them because they've gone above and beyond. Councillor Owen mentioned Mrs Bartlett, who was my kinder teacher and also my brother's, and I believe Councillor Owen's too. So massive congratulations to her, and reading that article in the Gazette was certainly very, very nice and brought back a lot of memories. I lastly also just want to mention Remembrance Day. I was driving back from a job and couldn't make it back to Pakenham in time, and luckily enough I found myself in Berwick, and I stopped at in the main street of Berwick, which I know is not within Cardinia. You'll have to forgive me, but it was a very nice service, and it was good to see Brad Batten there and a number of veterans. So I just wanted to thank everyone who paused and gave up a minute at 11 o'clock. It's really important that we continue that tradition. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Mayor Springfield.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. I'll now go to Councillor Ryan to speak.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It's always great to hear what everyone else does within the community. I think it's really an important item that our residents know what we're doing, whether it's been during virtual in lockdown in COVID, or now we're kind of escaping in a way and getting out there and mixing with our community. I too went to Pakenham Remembrance Day, and beautiful service, and then we went back to the RSL for lunch. So there was only a few of us selected people that were there. The luncheon was beautiful, and the CWA ladies, as usual, absolutely beautiful food. Jordan Cravali was there, our MP, and an outgoing federal MP, Edward O'Donoghue, he was there. So I wished him all the best in his future, and he still owes me a cup of coffee, I told him. So hopefully I'll get that cup of coffee one day. Of course, we had Melbourne Cup, so that was an interesting day to have off. So, and I want to mention the passing of Bert Newton. Very interesting person, and he had a lot to do with my grandmother when I was a little girl. So I remember him because my uncle was a cameraman, so Bert Newton and Graham Kennedy used to come round and have dinner with my grandmum. So very, very special person. So I remember at my grandmother's funeral, he overstood all of the family because we were all little, and he was very tall. So I just wanted to send my condolences to the family. And senior festival events, yes, I did some virtual, and that was a lot of fun because you had to get up and exercise and do some things, and then run and write up a recipe and then come back. So that was, your mind's not thinking straight when you're trying to think of a recipe to write down. I'd also like to mention I was invited to a send-off. One of our long-term serving residents who had a business for 32 years in Pakenham, and the doors have now closed, and she's moving on to a new journey. So that was Mama Rose's restaurant. So, and I noticed that Rose is in the chambers here. So all the best for you, Rosa. And it was a lovely day to hear the history of the start of the restaurant. And there were ex-councillors there, or ex-councillors, and yes, it was a lovely to meet up with some of the residents that have now moved out of the area. And finally, we had Mental Health Awareness Month last month. Very important item for me. I'm very passionate about this area, and we had some virtual workshops, and one of them I went to was for truck drivers. And I found it very interesting because it talked about to a lot of truck drivers how it affects them, especially the hours that they drive, getting to interstate or just place to place, and how the pressure is on them and how it affects their mental health. And so that was really, I got a lot out of that. I think it was really important to have a good understanding of that, and farmers too. There was another workshop with farmers, and just to hear them in reference to what sort of things affect them and how they're coping. And I was supposed to go to Parliament House over during that month, but unfortunately we were in lockdown. I won an award for my mental health advocacy, and it was in mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And just the work that I've been doing since 1973 in mental health, and working with and breaking down the stigma is one of the things that I've been advocating for, and also working over time as a case manager and finding people with mental ill health jobs in our community, and convincing businesses that someone with a mental ill health can still work. It just has to be modified. So I was really thrown by that. I'm feeling very, very. It's still quite interesting, the fact that I'm still getting used to the fact that I've been acknowledged. I do the work because I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about speaking out for people that don't have someone that speaks out for them, and breaking down that stigma that everyone has an understanding of what it means for someone that has a mental ill health and how they cope within society. So, and I thank the people that nominated me. I'm very humbled by it, and that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have any other councillors that wish to speak? I might just... Councillor Ross, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. For those, I've just got a couple of things to report on. One of the things that I'm involved in, and it's mostly online now, is the National Growth Area Alliance, which normally our delegates, well, they still are, is the Mayor and the CEO of the day, attend most of them because we're part of the group. I'd been on it when I was Mayor and Deputy Mayor and filled in, and I got really interested in this space of advocacy and been to a lot of things for them. I actually got voted on to the Strategic Advisory Committee on the group, and we do some work behind the scenes and try and work out strategically how we can advance different things. And just for a little bit of idea on what this is all about that Council's involved in, the National Growth Area Alliance represents councils around the outskirts of Australia's capital cities, where growth is at least the double of the national average and infrastructure investment is historically low. Home to more than 5.2 million people, growth areas comprise some of Australia's most diverse and dynamic small cities, as well as expansive greenfield developments. Growth areas are the epicentre of the cultural diversity in Australia, and they have the huge potential to drive economic recovery. I was on a video the other day and it was ad lib, and you wonder how it's going to go. They throw some questions and they said to me, "We don't give you any lines, we just want you to be you, answer the questions like you do normally." So we talked about for the advocacy for election priorities for these areas. Two reasons why we've gone to the federal government to talk about how the focus should be on growth areas. During COVID, COVID had an unequalled impact in growth areas. Our populations are still growing and our boom is imminent. We've called upon all the major parties that we would like to see a minister for growth areas in Australia, whoever makes government. We need infrastructure to transform our economies and communities. We need to revitalise our economic engine room. And we need the community to recover and become more resilient in Australia's heartland. For those who don't realise, in our growth areas around the cities, they are populated by people who have to do the everyday to do essential work that keeps the nation running. Our communities lost the most loved ones during the pandemic and battled through the highest infection rates were in growth areas or interface councils. Our communities bore the brunt of things like bushfires and floods as well, and we're sort of calling on the federal government and the opposition and other parties to recognise that and to continue to support us. Sport, education, creative expression are central to our nation's cultural identity and a local sense of community and belonging. This sort of infrastructure is vital in strengthening the social fabric of growing communities and is drastically underfunded in growth areas, and that's something we've managed to achieve a bit of in the past with the Growing Suburbs Fund. Nationally, we haven't been quite as successful. We've got things called city deals, but they do come through sometimes, but sometimes you can spend years and years and work on them, and unfortunately, because they're so broad, you can't bring all the groups together and nothing comes out of it. So anyway, I've got to do another video on that to try and they put it up at their conference and they have all the delegates speak, so I look forward to that and see how that goes. I'll talk to the comms team. I'm better off script. They've given me a script, so I have to go by that. What I would like to do is just emphasise what Councillor Ryan shared in relation to Rosa. Rosa has been, I've been told that Rosa is definitely going to be in the community, even though she won't have her shop and be devoted to it 7 days a week. I must say, Rosa, for those who don't know Rosa, is a lady who was the lady behind the Santa and the horse and carriage that went round Pakenham at Christmas time. I know Councillor Moore has spent how many times? About 7 times. Eight times he's been Santa. I know I was definitely Santa once in there. I must say, what's really bizarre is when you go round as Santa and you open the door and you throw lollies out, but you know the names of the kids on the street. They don't take a lot of attention to you. And then when you say their name, they look up and they go, my gosh, that Santa knows who I am, because they know you because you've been in the local area. It's really funny when you see the looks on their face. I must say, besides that, Rosa has been behind the decorations coming back to Pakenham and trying to bring that Christmas cheer and encouraging council. I must say Rosa has been a lady who's been behind many, many community campaigns at times, and she definitely doesn't say no for an answer, Rosa, and she always pushes what she believes is the best for the community. And I must say she always challenges us to get the best out of ourselves. I want to thank Rosa for all the work she's done. I know that her and Gloria have been a team that have got together from time to time to prosecute all their different issues on council. And I must say, being there 7 days a week, you will be missed because you were there all the time. But from what I've been told through Carol, that you're just going to have you're still going to be around, but you're going to have a bit more time to yourself, that you won't have to be at the shop or dedicated to the shop all the time. And you might be able to go back to Italy, which you've been sharing wonderful photos of back in Italy at the moment on Facebook. So thank you, Rosa, for challenging us. Thank you for making Pakenham special. And that's about all I've got to report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other councillors that would like to? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a good on my hearing. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the sentiments from Councillor Ross and from Councillor Ryan too about Rosa. I enjoyed those that time of year. Being yours, I'll always be your Santa. Always. I enjoy putting in those couple of kilos every year to fit in the suit. It's a really nice thing to do. So we'll always do it together. Yeah, I need the belt. I know. Got it. Yes, we're not going to talk about the ripped pants. But I also echo about Rose. She does a fantastic job in our community and well renowned. I'd like to touch on Remembrance Day also, as my fellow councillors have done already, and I had the honour of dropping four wreaths off to Narnagoon, one at Narnagoon, one at Tonong, one at Garfield, and I surprisingly walked into they had a service at Bunyip, which was fantastic to get it back out in the community, and they're such a wonderful RSL Bunyip, very strong community group, and it was really great to be there to lay the wreath and get back to normal, something a little bit normal. Wasn't all the way normal, but it was. The community came and supported it too there on the day. So it was. So to get back in our community, councillors is the wonderful thing that we do as councillors, and so I look forward to more of those encounters down the track somewhere. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other councillors with reports they'd like to present? I might just add one quickly myself, and I would like to give my gratitude and thanks to the Emerald Village Association Committee and the wonderful volunteers down there. I attended their AGM 2 weeks ago and chaired the election of their committee once again. But look, all of us have groups like this within our townships that help be advocates for the townships, and they are a conduit towards us councillors toward what they need and what the community needs. So without these great volunteers out there having their village associations and their township committees, this council would be much more at a loss for our Shire. So it is wonderful. We're going to celebrate these community groups and these volunteers as much as we can. So I'd like to tip my hat to the Emerald Village Association, and also the service I attended in Emerald, put on by the Emerald RSL. They always do a wonderful job up there. Peter Maloney and the entire Emerald RSL group, they're very passionate about this, and so Emerald is blessed every year twice a year when it comes to Anzac Day and Remembrance Day for wonderful services. So it was lovely to actually be in person, in public, and to be able to join my other community members in this very important day. So thank you, councillors. Moving along to presentations of petitions. And councillors, are there any petitions that you would like to present? There being none, I will move along to notices of motion. Councillor Cameron, you have lodged a notice of motion 1069 regarding the Sex Workers Act. Could you please move your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I move a motion that Council notes the Victorian Government's intent to decriminalise sex work in Victoria and expresses its concerns regarding that intention. As this is a lengthy notice of motion and I know it's been put out for public to view, I won't read through it.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. And the motion as listed in the papers?
Correct.
Thank you. I'll ask for a seconder, please, councillors. Councillor Radford. I'll go back to you, Councillor Cameron, to speak to this motion.
Thank you, Mayor. The repeal of the Sex Work Act 1994 will allow industry regulation to be managed under other acts. The rationale for this approach is that sex work business should be treated the same as other businesses in Victoria and regulated through standard planning, OC health and safety and other business regulations that apply in Victoria. In 2015, the New South Wales Select Committee on the regulation of brothels was advised that where standards were not enforced in this industry, the cost on human beings could be horrendous, and every effort obviously must be made to ensure appropriate standards are maintained. This was aimed at a situation of servitude. Servitude is where Asian women are brought to Australia on a student visa, on a tourist visa, I beg your pardon, and then they, once they're here, they apply for a student visa. The student visas are often denied and the process can take up to 2 to 3 years. So they are therefore put into the sex trade. They have to work up to 20 hours a week and not knowing the legal system or their legal entitlements, and no matter how bad things get, for them they're incapable of breaking away. Lax or non-existent checks and balances are not the answer in what is a very real problem. The results of the New South Wales police analysis and thinking indicated that there were clearly issues in the industry in terms of servitude and the use of illegal workers and extortion by or involvement of organised crime and motorcycle gang groups. Nothing to stop these groups from buying, renting properties and setting up these premises as brothels in Cardinia Shire. The primary responsibility for policing complaints against the premises will be local council, which would be well beyond council staff job description and expertise. Councils would become the conduit through which things are filtered to police where criminal activity could be detected. Who's going to train the council staff to recognise the problems and at what cost to council? It's also been found that local government officials have been caught being bribed by brothel owners. A local law made under the Local Government Act 2020 must not be inconsistent with the purposes of the new act, or undermine the purposes of the Act to decriminalise sex work and provide for the reduction of discrimination against and harm to sex workers. In relation to advertising regulations under Section 39(1) of the Summary Offences Act 1966, it will be substituted and the Governor in Council may, he only may, make regulations for or with respect to the size, form and content of advertising for commercial sexual premises and services. The new Section 36C of the bill makes it an offence for a person who carries on a business that provides commercial sexual services or assists in the management of that business to allow a child under the age of 18 months to enter or remain on the premises at which that business is carried on. The offence excludes premises that are primarily used for as a residential premise and is intended to ensure that it is not an offence for sex workers operating home businesses to allow their own children to reside in their home. With this section included, there is absolutely no protection for the children, and that must be considered a huge social welfare issue for those children. As parents, we all know the formative years of a child is between 0 and 8 years. The sex workers will no longer be required to have regular medical checks, so there will be great implications in this in relation to sexually transmitted diseases. In closing, every jurisdiction in the world that has legalised or decriminalised prostitution has witnessed a massive increase in demand for sexual services and has experienced significant growth in human trafficking, more so than those countries which have not legalised or decriminalised prostitution. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I will now go to the seconder, Councillor Radford, to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron, for organising this notice of motion. As this became apparent and public, I did have a number of residents contact me with concerns that they could have I'll refer to as a sex business, brothel, in their residential street. So I did sort of look into it, wondering, well, is this something that can realistically happen? And as Councillor Cameron pointed out, Clause 3 requires that the local government laws enacted under the Local Government Act 2020 must not be inconsistent with the policy intent of this bill. So whilst I believe that everyone deserves to be protected in no matter what level of work that they've chosen or have to do, there does need to be policies and protection in place for people working in this industry. I'm concerned that we're losing as a local government the ability to say, no, we really don't want to see that business here. So yes, there is some, you're not allowed to be within a school or a church, but do we necessarily want it down the end of my street? So that's the only thing that I'm really worried about. That's why I'm happy to support this notice of motion that Councillor Cameron has brought forward, and on behalf of my constituents, because this is their concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to this item? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cameron, for raising this. A lot of your speaking notes tonight did present your information to me. I am in agreement with Councillor Radford that councillor feedback does need to be provided. I personally need more time to review this notice of motion before I support it in its entirety. Safety, community and personal, it's imperative as a women's rights, trafficking, organised crime, and I believe that council and council's officers are united in this. We want the best for Cardinia. As a councillor, I have to have full confidence in the CEO and her staff to work through the detail on any changes by the state government that are impacting council and present that for consideration for councillors needed. And I am of the understanding that council officers with expertise and experience in legislation review and community safety could review this prior to any changes in council procedures, and that if this expertise is not available in-house, that we would outsource this. I want to confirm that I support Councillor Cameron's interest in this matter and Councillor Radford in support of this motion, but I can't support the notice of motion as is. I do support the safety of the workers, the consumers, the community. It's important and serious stuff. But as a notice of motion is a major change to local law to enact immediately, I don't feel comfortable voting in support right now. And it's not due to the intent, it's just due to the limited availability of supporting information alongside what is presented to me currently as an individual councillor. To me, I'm not confident that this is the appropriate action to take right now. This is a lot of content. In short, I agree that it's a big issue, but my faith is in our staff to provide comprehensive information. I don't have enough information to support a change to local law immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll now go to Councillor Kowaczyk to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. And through you, can I just ask a question to Mr Evans? I just want councillors to be aware that the notice of motion that's in the handout is very different from the notice of motion in Big Tin Can Hub. And the notice of motion that Councillor Cameron is putting forward is the notice online, not the notice in the handout. So it's important that councillors are aware of that before they make their decision, because it's very, very different. Can you please inform the councillors, Mr Evans?
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, my apologies, councillors. The version of the notice of motion that's in the handout I gave you earlier, the written paper, is Councillor Cameron's initial version. It's not the revised version that appears in the public council agenda. So what Councillor Cameron has moved tonight is a version that appears in the public council agenda. And my apologies, Councillor Cameron, the version that is in this is your original version, not the revised version that you've workshopped with Lily Rossick. So the version that is in the public agenda that has been made available is the version that Councillor Cameron has moved.
Thank you very much, Mr Evans, for clarifying that. And in light of that, councillors, I'm inclined to support Councillor Cameron's notice of motion tonight, which has been workshopped and amended. So I will be honest, when I read the initial one, I was probably leaning to opposing it. Just some of the strong language was hard for me. But I want to commend Councillor Cameron for workshopping it, for taking some suggestions on board through council officers. And I'm inclined to support that notice of motion tonight. Thank you, Mayor Springfield.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk, and thank you for pointing that out. It is appreciated by all councillors. Good work. The councillors who would like to speak, I'll go to Councillor Ryan first and then Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to other councillors, and thank you, Councillor Cameron, for this presentation of this subject, because I think it's a really important subject. This has been a long time business, many years, and sometimes it's run well, other times it hasn't been run well, and this is an example. It's about safety of these ladies, and safety of children, safety of the environment, and they're entitled to have safety like everybody else within the workplace. And if we are able to look at that more sensibly and laterally and think about our safety issues and what we believe that should be safe for us, should be the same entitlement for them. And I think too that, we don't want to see them on the street. We don't want to see, there's been too many issues over many years, especially down St Kilda, and the numbers of offences that happened with people working on the streets. So it's not really safe for them. So again, as Councillor Radford pointed out too, that a lot of people will say we don't want it down our street, but then we say that about lots and lots of things. But I think if it's well run and it's safe, then who are we to judge? And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, but I will be in support of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll now go to Councillor Moore to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron, for bringing this to our attention. And I agree with Councillor Kowaczyk. You beat me to the gun, Councillor. This first notice of motion that was written up as in this was too political for my liking, and a lot more simplified as it is in the form that we are voting on tonight, which is in the and I implore the public to actually read the one that's in the report, because it's very important that they realise and recognise that what we are voting on this evening is not this written form. It's the simplified version, which is a lot more to the point and less political. So I'll be supporting this, councillors and Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other councillors? I'll go to you, Councillor Ross. Look, just a note too before we start, councillors, considering that there has been, on the written paper, a different version presented. If any other councillors would like to request more time to consider and make sure they're across the motion as it is listed in the Big Tin Can Hub papers, please notify me of that, and we will allow more time to consider this if it is requested by any councillors. So thank you. And thank you, Councillor Ross. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron, for highlighting this issue. When you really read through the what we're intending to do, or you intending to vote on, this highlights the concerns to local government in this sector, and it sends forward our concerns to the relevant people who would be voting on this. It's a whole lot about consultation with us, talking to us about what it means, and seeing whether or not they're happy to come and sort of give us a little bit more say in the local area in these things. I believe everybody concerned wants the best for everybody concerned. Unfortunately, they take different tracks to get to the same destination. As a council, we have a duty on behalf of our ratepayers to do what we see as best for them, and this indicates our concerns and puts their issues forward to the powers to be to express those concerns. Anyway, I'll be supporting this. I hope fellow councillors will too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this motion? And if there's any councillors that would like more time for consideration, please let me know. I'll just say a couple of words myself. And much in agreement with other councillors as they have spoken tonight, there is concerns around the unknown that have been highlighted here. And I acknowledge that and agree and appreciate that. I also acknowledge there is some unknowns for myself too. And from what I have read from the state government, their intention is to provide safety and to look at how they can make reforms to make this a better industry, a safer industry. Now, I can't tell you wholeheartedly if that's going to be achieved or not going to be achieved. That's certainly, I'm going to say that's above my pay grade as a councillor and now as a mayor. It's I'm not informed enough to know that. But look, but I do appreciate the sentiments I've heard from all councillors tonight. And look, and as such, I am happy to support this motion as is listed in the amended motion. It is well worded, and it is highlighting the concerns, which again I cannot say what would be the best policy to put forward in order to ensure the best safety within our community as what the state government should or should not do, but to raise the concerns to make sure that every aspect is thought of and covered and consulted upon, I do think is quite reasonable. So thank you, Councillor Cameron, for bringing this forward. I will now go back to the mover, Councillor Cameron, to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Radford, and thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk, for pointing that out. And thank you for all the fellow councillors. I really appreciate the support on this. And at the end of the day, it's the best interest for the working girls that is of concern, and the children that may or may not be involved. So that's all I have to say in summing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along, Councillor Owen, you have also lodged the notice of motion, which is number 1070 and concerning the open air burning policy. Can you please move your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council resolves as follows. 1, the Chief Executive Officer must ensure that Council authorised officers refrain from enforcing Clause 60H.1.1 of the Cardinia Shire Council Local Law 17 to the extent that Clause 60H .1.1 prohibits open air fires from burning or continuing to burn on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays in burn-off areas as defined by Clause 60A of the Local Law 17. This resolution applies to conduct occurring during the period commencing the 22nd of November 2021 and until the commencement of the declared fire danger period. 2. All other requirements of Part 5A of the Local Law 17 continue to apply during this period. And 3. Council notes that the purposes and intention of this resolution is to promote higher levels of fuel reduction in burn-off areas in preparation for the 2021-2022 fire season. So I move so.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Moore. I'll now go back to Councillor Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore. This motion, very similar motions or exact versions have been passed by this council over the last 3 years. Definitely our draft proposed local law does include this in the draft documents, and obviously we've recently gone out to community consultation and regarding that proposed local law changes, and there's definitely positive feedback regarding that intention, you know, when we do adopt the revised local law. I think it is definitely something that our residents really welcome. Make the most of every opportunity in the lead up to a declared fire period. We know it's pretty wet at the moment, but if we get a bit of heat, it will dry up very quickly. But it will give residents in those areas that need to remove the fuel loads on their property every opportunity, more opportunity to get rid of that fuel load. So I welcome this, and I ask councillors to support so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's an honour to second this notice of motion. Thank you, Councillor Owen, for bringing this forward. This has been a few years now that we've, this time of year, to support our community, to have these levels of burn-off. Particularly, as you mentioned, with the wet weather we've had recently, it has delayed the burn-off period prior to now, being so wet, and you won't be able to burn anything. So I think it's only fair that we should extend this this period onward. I know myself personally, I'm right in that fire area, that fire risk area that needs as much burn off time as we can get, and so I think it's a great initiative from new councillor, and for us as a council to extend that period up to the commencing from the 22nd of November until the declared fire danger period. So I think it's a great thing, and I support it totally. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll just add a few words, and I appreciate the sentiments of Councillor Owen and Councillor Moore. Living in the hills myself, I know the feelings of residents up there, and they do majoritively want to have more opportunities when they can to burn off their fire reduction and prevention, and I think this motion goes a ways for us to alleviate these concerns that they have. There've been so much storm damage recently too, as we've noted previously in this meeting, so I'm very hopeful that if this is supported tonight, it will give the opportunity to residents all across our Shire in our more regional areas to have better opportunities to burn off. I'm hopeful this year, with all the wet weather we have, that we won't have a massive fire danger period as we have seen in recent years. But that being the case, regardless of that, I think we still need to give them as many opportunities as possible. And hopefully also the fire restriction period will come in later rather than earlier, because there's been many years I recall where it's adopted in November. It would already be almost upon us. So, so this is always a concern for our residents each year. Thank you, councillors. I'll now go back to Councillor Owen to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Just in summary, it will kick in effect as of the 22nd of November. That gives a week from today just to educate our community regarding the process and allow officers to implement this motion. So in a week's time, it will be enforced. But as I said before, with the adoption of the new local law regarding open air burning and fires in the coming months, it will remove the requirement of a councillor to move this at in a council meeting every sort of November. So I welcome that, and when we adopt the final local law update. Thank you. I move so. Thank you.
Councillors, I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Finally, Councillor Ross, you have lodged a notice of motion 1071 regarding open space maintenance, and I understand that you would like to amend your motion. So, Councillor Ross, please present your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. The amended motion for this month's General Council meeting I put forward is that the Chief Executive Officer provide a report regarding open space maintenance, particularly considering the current wet conditions that has affected the current maintenance standard of open space areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ryan. I'll now go back to Councillor Ross to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking to this notice of motion, I'll give some background on why it's come up. For anybody in the Shire at the moment who gets around at all, you will notice, as I did today, I generally ride around my ward about 2 or 3 times a week. I go for runs and walks. I go on journeys around the place with my work. And today, looking at some planning application work and coming into council to get my electronic devices unlocked, I managed to go from Officer to Pakenham to Kuirup to Lang Lang to Yanathan to Katani, Nanogoon North, up to Gembrook, back through Upper Pakenham, through Lakeside Estate and back to Pakenham again. What people will notice at the moment is that there is a huge inconsistency in the level of maintenance in our open space. There's areas where there's 4 foot high grass, there's other areas where it's 1 inch long. And the community have the right, with their community expectations and standards they expect today, to be very upset over it, because I work as I've got a franchise in gardening and lawn mowing, and I know how much work and planning is needed in trying times to try and be on top of things. And when you have a look at what you need to do is over winter time, when it doesn't rain as much and things don't grow, you need to be on top of things. When springtime comes and the growth does come, you need to be cutting things back. And everybody in the industry knows that when October comes, it's the wettest month of the year, so everything gets really heavy. And if you haven't done your early work, you basically finish up with grass and ground that won't dry out because it's too long. Every time you go to mow it, you push it over and it stands back up, and you finish up with just a dog's breakfast. Community standards have changed hugely. I go back, and I was talking to some people about this earlier. If you go back to, say, football grounds 30 years ago, there were times when the whole ground would be covered in mud and there would be water across it. No one ever thought of not playing. They just accepted it. And different things, whether it be walking parks, playgrounds. I mean, the playgrounds that you faced 30 years ago was basically a metal slide that was on top of grass, and if you fell off, you either broke your wrist or your elbow, or your wrist or your arm or something if you fell down. We have amazing playgrounds in Cardinia Shire. Our parks are great, our walkways are great, our sporting fields are great, and the expectation of the community now is that it should be consistent right across the board. With this, we've had a situation where, for whatever reason, and that's why it's been asked at this stage for the Chief Executive Officer to come back with a report regarding what's happened in this space, there is no consistency at the moment. I actually on Cup Day I went round and I couldn't believe some areas were getting mowed twice when they were only 2 inches high. And yet other areas were 4 feet tall. I rang some other councillors in other wards and I said, can you have a look at your park? Am I just noticing it myself or is it going everywhere? And it was consistent across the board. What I'm endeavouring to do here is to bring people's attention that we have noticed on council, and the officers have done the best they can to send a rocket along to try and find out what isn't happening in this space, why we have 4 foot high grass in some areas and why it looks reasonable in others. People pay. Council spends $108.5 million in expenditure a year. The expectation is that you should be able to walk down your pathway and it should be a reasonable size on the sides. Your playground should not have 3 foot high grass around them. And what I'm going to be asking for in the long run is that it isn't good enough at the moment. It needs to be improved. It needs to become consistent over areas. And with an improvement in this area and good maintenance, people have shared with me in areas which are kept really good, they have a huge pride and they're very proud of where they live. It improves the amenity of the area. It's much cleaner. People don't dump rubbish or throw rubbish into grass that's only 2 inches high. Where they throw it, from my experience, is where it's 3 foot high and no one can see it. And I've actually done work in that area myself. I must say it's much cleaner without the rubbish, without the hard waste, less graffiti as well. And that's, I believe, the new community expectation that we all have. We all want to live in somewhere we're proud to go for a walk around, and I think in the long run we will get to the bottom of this on why it isn't happening. The CEO is going to come back with a report, and if we need to, we will have to take some, I will put some options forward in motions to see that something will happen. But anyway, we'll wait on this report when it comes back. I believe as well, just finishing, that we all pay the same rate now, so we all expect the same level, and people expect in Cardinia Shire to have the highest level. So that's what we expect, and that's what council will make sure that we deliver in the end. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Ryan, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for bringing this up. I too have been concerned, and some of my residents within my ward have been very concerned about what they're seeing in one area or two areas, and then they make comparison, as we know. And without our community feedback, we wouldn't be aware of some of the things that do happen in our community. But I have been aware that there is growth in some areas that should have been cut down a lot lower. I always have the fear that, when there's long grass and there's wet weather, there's frogs, there's snakes, and that is a concern for our community. When you get sun, you get rain, then you get growth, and it's continual. And I know from my own lawnmower guy, it's every 2 weeks he's got to come out and mow the lawn to keep my lawn down. So it's got to be consistency in all wards, and consistency comes with equality for all wards. I'll look forward to this report. I think it's really important to have these reports to see how we can improve and where we may be may need more improvement that we haven't even thought of. So discussions I always value. And again, yes, we always get thrown at us from residents. We pay the same rates, so why aren't we getting the same services? But again, sometimes things happen. Machinery breaks down, and we don't always account for that either. But I think I'll look forward to the report coming back, and hopefully we'll improve our services. Whether we need more staff, who knows? We'll wait and see for the report. So I will be in support of this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do we have any other councillors? Yes, Councillor Kowaczyk, and then Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mayor Springfield. Thanks, Councillor Ross, Councillor Ryan, for your comments on this so far tonight. I'll be supporting this notice of motion tonight with respect to asking for a report from the CEO. I think that's a pretty good move at this stage. I just want to briefly communicate some messages to the community. I, and I'm sure all councillors, have received some direct comments on Facebook and phone calls, emails, etc. regarding some areas of concern within Pakenham Hills and the wider Shire with respect to the length of grass. Now, I just want to make our community aware that councils is working hard, liaising with contractors, whether they be council's own or operating on behalf of the Department of Transport. We understand the frustration of the community at this time, and we recognise the current levels and the height of the grass in some areas is not good enough. Now, obviously, there's reasons for that, but you can rest assured that we're aware, the contractors are aware, and all parties are working hard to achieve a satisfactory outcome and to rectify the issue as quickly as possible. So I think it's important that we put that message out there tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for bringing this notice of motion up. It's very important to our community to understand, and we're communicating across to the issues. Well, first, I want to say in all respects to our staff, what a great job they're doing in this place under difficult circumstances, and they are difficult circumstances where it got before us. It's not the first time this has happened, so it's not new. This time of year, the grass does grow, let's face it. I think anyone who'd have a lawn at home would understand how quick it grows, but it gets back to fairness. The fairness is the bit that I'm talking about, where equality across our shires. I know that the residents in Bunyip and Garfield pay the same amount of rates as the Central Ward areas of Cardinia Shire, and you could understand when they say we're not getting the same services, and what am I doing about it? I remember a few weeks ago when we had a resolution here of council and everything was all sorted, there was an article in the paper about us councillors. We agreed, we said we're doing everything fine, everything's good. My resident said, he says, you agreed to this. I said, well, at the time, it was good. Things change, and that's what happens in life, unfortunately. And we're here to support our residents, and we're there for fairness, and we want to get equal billing and equal across the board. And I know that we'll get it eventually. And I'm looking forward to the CEO's report back and see what comes out of this, to see which way we have to jump with this. Do we have to readjust the budgets? Is that where we have to go? Which area are we lacking in this? So that's why I'm going to support this for a report only, and see where it goes to, and bring back to our council table to see and report back to our residents then to get the facts. And I think that's what we have to get to get down to the right area. But thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any other councillors wish to speak to this item? I'll just say a few words before I go back to the mover. And look, I agree with the sentiments expressed here tonight by the councillors. I'd also like to make mention that it's a bigger case, I believe, than just it's being unequal services as such. I think there's what we have to address, and what I hope this report will highlight, is the need when changing weather environments and different seasonal changes. And this year it has been more excessive, but saying that, most years I come to this time of year and I get complaints about roadside grass here and there, and it's a Vic road thing, it's a council road thing. But this year particularly, my backyard has been growing crazy. Like, it's once a week I'm out there mowing it. I'm glad I've got this nice run-on lawnmower these days. It makes it much easier. But I think this report, I hope, will highlight and identify how we can tackle the issue, because we can't just throw money at something if it's not fixing the problem. And that's what I would like to see addressed here, is how we can address this to actually make sure we deliver the service that is expected from our community. And it's a service that we all want to see delivered here, and we've all been talking about it. I understand that the constraints have been upon the contractors in delivering, from weather conditions, from terrain being too wet, and from COVID pandemic impacts and staffing restrictions. So I understand there's a lot of forces at play here, but our job is to try and understand how we can deliver the best service, and I think this is the right step in order to achieve that goal. So I thank you, councillors. I will be supporting this myself also. I'll now go back to Councillor Ross to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, fellow councillors. It is really important that we do recognise things when they go pear-shaped. And in this case, we've all had residents come to us asking the question, I pay thousands of dollars in rates. Why does it look like the way that it looks? Obviously, something's not working. I must say I've mowed over 10,000 lawns in the last probably 12 years in open spaces. I deal with the rain all year round. I deal with wet places, dry places, hilly places. I cut lawns in, I cut areas in Officer where there's tiger snakes between poles for pole dumps. And the number one thing that you can do if you want to make sure that the snakes don't come round is you keep it as low as you can. And if you keep it as low as you can, they've got nowhere to hide. So therefore they go to where the longer grass is. And I would hate to think that, you know, we need to coexist with our animals in society. It's not their fault that we don't, you know, we've moved into their area anyway to live, so therefore we need to coexist. So therefore, if we can do anything that we can to try and ensure that our residents don't get shocks or things when they go to walk their baby down the Tumut Creek and they discover that there's a snake getting wrapped around the, and it has happened, the wheels on the baby stroller. You know, that's a terrible thing, and you don't want them to have that experience because that's not the experience. If you hear frogs, you know there's pretty much going to be snakes in the area because that's what they eat. So therefore, our residents deserve a first-class service in this area. And I believe they deserve to be treated that way, like we would ourselves. So therefore, our goal in the long run is, you know, if you pay the same, you get the same service. And I believe we have a premium service already in Cardinia Shire in some of the areas, and I believe that should be transposed to the other areas too. Anyway, that's all, and we look forward to a report coming back. Thank you.
Councillors, I'll now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Community question time. We have received 2 questions from Mr. Nisarg Modi. Is Mr. Modi present? You not being present, the relevant, I'll request that we won't read your question out and answer it tonight, but we will. The relevant officers will respond in writing to the question. So, thank you, Mr. Modi, for your question. Councillor question time. And Councillor Davies, you wish to ask the CEO a question regarding concerns with open space management at present. Can you ask your question, please?
Thank you, Mayor. My question was for the Chief Executive Officer. Councillors have received unprecedented feedback and concerns regarding long grass in parks and reserves. Has the CEO and Council received similar concerns or feedback for your consideration, please, CEO?
Thank you, Councillor Davies. And I'll now request that Ms Jeffs, can you please respond to Councillor Davies?
Thank you, Councillor Davies, and through you, Mayor. Yes, certainly we are very aware of the increased requests that you have received, but we have also received, and it is quite alarming, and I look forward to providing the report back to Council, which will provide not only an explanation of the challenges that are faced at this particular time, but what we're doing in terms of remedying the situation. And I might just add, Mr Mayor, that we won't be waiting for a report before starting action. As some councillors have pointed out tonight, we are actively working to correct the situation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Jeffs. Thank you. That concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you for your interest and attendance. Thank you, councillors, and thank you for my first meeting here as Mayor for the coming year. Again, my huge gratitude for the support shown for me to undertake this position, and once more my great thanks to Councillor Owen for the tremendous job he's done from the previous year under the harshest circumstances we've seen, so that was well done, fantastic effort. Thank you, councillors. I now declare this meeting closed.